Internet. I'm trying something. I've never done this before. I do not do recordings on my own, and I especially don't do audio on my own. We'll see if this works or doesn't work. My name is Megan. I draw Pokemon, honestly, a lot. You probably are here because you already know that. So let's get down to it. Her name is Tanuki. I think I named her before I knew what a Tanuki was. She is a Lanoon, was a Zigzagoon. I put the pictures here just in case that's useful. Let's get rid of this for now. I'm going to draw her. I want to eventually have Gajinka designs for most of my main Pokemon. And I'm trying to start with a bunch of the ones that I've had for a very, very long time. I want to say, when did Sapphire version come out in America? 2004? 2005? I don't remember right now. She's from original Sapphire. She was either the first or second thing I caught after getting a starter. Speaking of, I do have my starter. Let's just look at him real quick, since I mentioned him. That's my Mudkip. His name is Mashimizu. At the time, I was, early stage weeb. I would have been 14 or 15. I figured out how to go to an online English to Japanese translator, would punch in words, and then just use them as Pokemon names. So I typed in water. I want to say Mashimizu means, clear water, which is hilarious because he's ground type. Which I didn't know at first because the game was new. And that's him. Well, I had him and then I got either a Poochyena or Tanuki. Again, I put in the name into a translator. I think I just put in raccoon and it came out as raccoon dog. And I was like, what the fuck is a raccoon dog? And eventually I learned that they're like a magical badger with giant shapeshifter nuts or whatever. It's I didn't know that yet. Anyways, Tanuki is honestly just kind of a standard Lanoon. So she's kind of long. She's one of my taller girls. I want to have all of my cool big arts like this to have them doing some kind of attack. And an interesting thing about Lanoon is that they can learn a jillion different weird things. They're great for HMs. They learn Surf. They also learn Thunderbolt. They can just learn a bunch of random shit. So, what do I want to have her doing? I think she's going to do Thunderbolt in her... I do 3 stages, even though this is a 2-stage Pokemon, because I don't want it to be every evolution is just a bump in age, because then that has weird implications. Well, what does it mean then if you evolve a Pokemon early, if you just run them through the Elite Four immediately after hatching? Are they just an instant adult? No. So I give them 3 stages so that they have, it's just a child, a teen form. Some of my Pokemon I did not catch as babies, but they have baby forms, like a lot of Pikachus. You don't really find Pichu in the wild much. So I give them a second Pikachu form before they become Raichus. So it's oh, well, they don't instant grow. And in theory, if you just don't evolve something, then it still ages. You don't have a permanent child. Because that's creepy. So let's just get going. Do my sketches in blue because that's what they tell you to do if you're gonna do animation, I guess. And you can draw over it and you can kind of still see. So I've just always used blue because that's what I was told. Technically you can use anything. I don't care. Let's see, let's have some... This will look better when I'm done with it. Let's have some lightning bolts going off. Gonna constantly need to look at my reference picture for her outfit. I gave her a little necklace with little things on it, because she has Surf, Ice Beam, and Thunderbolt, so I've got 2 blues and a yellow little stone, and because Zigzagoons and Lanoons use pickup, they like shiny rocks, so let's just give her a shiny rock. I don't need to draw a second hand there, fuck second hands. She can just have one. because there's going to be a bunch of, just like this one. So it's going to be 3 of the person, and it's going to have to be cut off at the end, because, like, whatever. So, teen form, a little more tomboyish. Like, I like the idea for her that she started kind of looking like her mom dresses her. Like, she looks like she's ready for school picture day, isn't she precious? And then as she gets older, she just kind of picks her own clothes. It's just kind of a result of, Zigzagoons being fluffier, so they wind up translating well into, like, bigger hair and frillier clothes. So. Nope, that's not what I want. Yeah, I have a different thing up here for color picking later, for the backgrounds and stuff. Let's see. I gave her this little flip on top. You'll see it better when everything's not in blue, because it's just kind of a stand-in for the ears on the Linoone. I don't want to give... Okay, so no one's ever really standardized what Kajinka means, and that's... I don't know, that's just how that goes. So is it just a type of furry? Is it a kimono mimi? Is it just a straight person? Are you allowed to use weird hair colors or not? I've decided, like, I'm not going to do animal ears. I want every character to have, like, an anthroform too, but not yet. Because those are kind of harder to do. How do I do anthros for some of these things? Well, she would be easy. Tanuki would be easy to do, but not all of Pokemon are going to make sense. There's a lot of lizards and fish. It's like, you gotta make a lot of decisions of how to translate that into an anthroform for running out of breath. For humans, though, it's like, I don't know, just give them hair that's the color that would have been the fur color. It's easy. Mostly, it's just an excuse for me to use different fashions, honestly. I'm just playing fashion designer with a lot of these. One of the things she has is covet, and I don't really know how to depict that. I do want to show moves, but what is that? I guess covet is when you, just beg for whatever the opponent's hold item is. That's not really, dynamic, but I still want to show it. Let's make that a heart. I'll probably come up with something better for that to be when we get there. And then baby form. I always wind up doing the baby form on top, so it's like sequential when you go down, but that means I wind up drawing it last. Cute thing about Zigzagoons is they've got ginormous eyes. It's big ol' uwu eyes. As opposed to Linoone's just kind of angry. So I can have some more fun with her just having just super cute, just giant moe baby eyes. As you can see, I'm going to be going back and forth a lot. Normally I will set this to a smaller size. Hey, there's Audacity. Set that to a smaller size and put things next to it, but it's like, I want to keep the stuff clean. I can't have a million things in the way. I'm just gonna give her like a generic scratch pose for this. It seems like I'm confident when I do hands, but secretly I tend to, when I'm drawing really fast, only give hands 2 joints instead of 3. That's the secret. Instead of doing the old animator's trick of just designing things with 4 fingers, I just give them less knuckles. No one has ever called me out on it. So you can steal that trick. No one will notice. So let's see. Let's give her her frilly dress. How did I do the... Okay, that goes up in the middle and down at the top. The fun thing about Kajinkas, both designing them and seeing other people's, is that you get to kind of do a little judgment of whether or not they make it obvious what they've done. Which is... I'm not sure what's preferable. I'm really not sure. It's like, do you want it to be subtle? But if it's subtle, are you just drawing a human? It's up to the individual person, and some people are just really good at making it obvious and making it fun that it's obvious. Some people are good at making it subtle. And then some people just put animal ears on a human and call it a Gajinka. It's like, that's a kimono Mimi. Whatever. I might make this 2 parts because it's kind of hard to sustain. It usually takes me like 2 hours, but I don't know if I can talk about this through the entire shading process and have it not be boring. Let's zoom in. Not that far. So the thing with her eyes is that they don't really look like Lanoon eyes. Oh, it's in the way now. Like, I'm not making... They've got, like, little angry eyes. I'm not gonna do that. I kind of wind up giving her... There's no name for this. I kind of ganked this from, like, old, like, retro Sugimori style and, like, Toriyama style Dragon Ball-ish art where it's, like, tall eyes. Did I give her lower lids? Not in the original, I didn't. No. Let's be consistent. Obviously, there are lower lids, you're just stylizing it as not there. You're just not seeing it. Kind of like how you don't always draw nostrils, but you assume people have them. Anyway, she has tall eyes like this, both to kind of convey a personality where she's awake, she's alert, she's peppy. Her actual nature is modest, if that matters. Kind of matters. But, like, I give her tall eyes because it kind of matches a long face, like she's got kind of a long nose. It's kind of slender. As you can see in a direct contrast with, like, as a baby she had those big old round eyes because the zigzags are just like that. Let's see. Time to draw that hand. I use my own hands for reference a lot of the time. But then I also have some stock poses for hands that I can... erase that. I can usually use stock poses and people don't notice. Because hands are so complicated. I do occasionally have people say they recognize my art even if it's like really old art they just found on accident, didn't know it was attached to me. Because it's like, oh, this person poses their characters the exact same way you do. And it's like, yeah, well, it's... I'm very fast at drawing, and I draw a lot, so... Sometimes you just have shortcuts. And my shortcuts, at least... My rule for my personal shortcuts and what is worth it and what's considered lazy is... If it doesn't look like I drew it, it's not good. Which means I very rarely use straight lines or circle tools or anything that's like makes it look like I didn't use my hands. I try to not do too much like photo referencing, which isn't the same as saying I don't look at photos to make sure I'm drawing something right, but I do not like put them down. And some people will do things like kind of trace backgrounds because it's in the background of your shot, it's not going to matter. It's like, then it looks like I didn't do it. It should match what you're seeing in the front. It should match my line style. I think she only shows a little bit of midriff here. I'm going to leave it there. Just because if people want to pretend she's pantsless, they can. I don't care. It's just a good place to cut off where her picture kind of fades out. Was I doing? Yeah, it was doing a little bit of a cuff to the end of her sweater. I wound up giving her the, like this ribbed sweater because actual Lanoon has a lot more stripes, and I didn't want to just give her a shirt with a lot of stripes. It's a little more subtle. Otherwise, I would just be giving everyone, like this kind of shirt where I've got, like, the sleeves are a separate color from everything that invokes the image of a stripe, but, like, then any animal that's based on something with stripes in real life is going to end up with one of those, so that's boring when everyone does it. I also like to do things like, oh, you would expect that, if it's a mammal, then the Gajinka's hair color is going to be the same as their fur color. It's like, not always. Because then every Pikachu would be blonde, for example. And I feel like at that point you're creating an ethnicity at that point? And it's like, nah, that limits you a lot. This isn't really the best character to exemplify me not wanting to do stuff. Oh, her neck is way too long. Stop what I was talking about. Raise her shoulders. This is kind of a cheat. It's not so much that her neck was long, it's that everything else was not matched up to it. Oh, let's make this a little thicker. This brush I'm using is a custom brush. Almost exclusively when I make custom brushes, it's while looking at a tutorial on how to do so I couldn't replicate it. I don't know what I did. But it doesn't always erase cleanly, but I don't think anyone will notice. Once this thing's fully colored, you're not going to notice that maybe there was a little bit of a half erase line. Anyways, this is not... let's do another line there. Maybe erase this. Yeah. Drawing is trial and error. If you're not doing it perfect the first time, it's because you're a human. If you don't mess up, you're a robot. Get yourself to a doctor and make sure they can tell if you're a robot or not. Anyways, this is not the best character to exemplify that. Oh, well, you shouldn't have to be restricted to the hair and skin and eye colors of the species. Like, she clearly is, but it kind of works for her. But it's not always true. I have multiple Raichus across multiple games, for example, and I don't want to make them all, like, have, like, orange or brown hair. One of them just straight up has pink hair. I don't even care. So long as you can still tell what they're supposed to be from other parts of their design. So sometimes I'll draw, I'll pull the clothing colors from a certain part of the Pokemon's features, but then for the next one of that type, I might draw that into the hair color instead. It's like, you can do whatever you want. There's no rules. It's just fan art. Where did I even get on this tangent? I don't care. Drawing Teen Tanuki now. In my original design sketches for her outfits, I wasn't putting her hair, her bangs so low. So now she's got, like, hidden eyebrows. I do that a lot. On some of my characters, I just straight up have a problem where I have to put on my reference notes, don't forget the eyebrows. It becomes especially hilarious when you look at... Sometimes I like having characters have big eyebrows. Bring up Mashimitsu again. Big ol' eyebrows. No actual forehead, because I keep forgetting where to put everything. It's part of the problem of drawing tall eyes, but no one calls me out on it, so whatever. There we go. You know what? There's her cat smile. Let's give her... No. Move that whole thing. Get rid of that. Destroy her mouth. There. That's good. You know what? Let's bring her up a little. If you smile more, you do kind of... There's a saying is like watch out for people whose smiles don't reach their eyes. So I do like to get a little bit of, like, a cheek touching the eye there when I want them to look like they're genuinely smiling. So she's got a mischief smile. This is not my thief character in the party. I have a Mightyena, and he's the one who actually literally has the move Thief, but she's the pickup user, and she has Covet, so it's like she's a little bit thiefy. She's mischievous. She's gonna be up to something. So I'll give her that smile. Forgot to put the lightning in down here. You know what? Let's do that before I forget. I'm gonna make a new layer. I put this one on opacity lower so that I can see what I'm doing better. How do I want to do this? I'm gonna do it so it's kind of coming out from her palm. Just do it a little zappity. Feel like putting an extra one there because there's space. even though I didn't really plan these out. I was like, yeah, let's do some of those. And let's get rid of them for now. They're there, I'll come back to them later. Let's do... I don't really know how to depict covet, so we just did, like, cat paws, like, I'm gonna take your shit, meow meow. And something else wants to update? No. I should figure out how to make it not do that. Whatever. It's weird to say that cat paws are one of my stock poses. I try to have... It's like I can do more than, like, point and fist, so I try to have stock poses that are weird. It's weird that this is one that I use. Part of it is because, you know, let me show you her. Where is she? Topanga, where'd you go? It's because I have a Meowth. I actually own many Meowths. This one is... Actually, she started as not a Pokemon. I mean, she did. She started as an OC, basically more or less just if I was in the anime, this would have been my Pokemon. Because I like Meowth. Anyways, she's doing the cat paws. So it's like, yeah, I do a lot of those because I do a lot of cat girl type stuff. Raccoons are cats, right? Yes. Anyways, what was I talking about before that? I don't know. Let's get some shoulder wrinkles, get some elbow wrinkles. Something's not right with this. Fix that. Fix it now. So the easiest thing to do is just kind of do it with my own hand. Yeah, I can see what I did wrong. That thumb was too high. Because I use my own hands for reference a lot of my characters have very slender, petite hands. Even when that doesn't make sense. Here it works, though. She's gonna have maybe slightly longer fingers than I would have had. But it makes sense for her to have, like, petite hands otherwise. Actual Lanoon has little claws. So, in theory, if I wanted to be super faithful to the source material, I should give her, like, long fingernails, like big old Piccolo Namek fingernails or something, but I don't want to. Because she's not supposed to be that glam. She's a little tomboyish. She does... Actually, that's a funny thing with my, So, on my team of Sapphire Pokemon, I have 3 boys and 3 girls, not including when I have to switch out for type advantages or to use HMs or whatever. One of the girls is a Gardevoir, and explicitly she considers herself a tomboy, which you wouldn't know from looking at her because Gardevoirs inherently kind of look very effeminate, even the dudes. And then I have a Beautifly, who just, you know, it's in the name, they're beautiful. And she's a little more girly. I like to think of Tanuki as kind of thinking of herself as a girly girl. She likes shiny rocks, she likes picking up pretty things, she likes having beautiful stuff, and she has, like, nice long hair. She thinks of herself as being, like, the girl one in the party. And then everything she wears is, like, shorts and sneakers. As the character gets older, she gets more tomboyish, but she doesn't think she is. And I think that's fun in comparison to having, like, a literal Gardevoir on the team. You know what? I changed my mind. I'm not letting her be pantsless down here. Because I think I'm going to extend Teen Tanuki's thing. Instead of having it fade out right at the shirt bottom, I want to go down a little further. And I want them to kind of match. Like, that there was an intentional rule involved. Even if there isn't. Even if I do just kind of do this as I go along, I want them to be consistent. So, what did I do for her? Yeah, it was just more jean shorts. Little zipper flat, whatever the fuck you call those. There. Zoom out. Get a feel for what we're doing. My line density could use some work. It's a little inconsistent. No. I don't like that these are the same line. Those should be different lines. It's called a tangent, is when two lines look like they kind of connect even though they're different shapes, but you just recycled the line. As opposed to this, where it's like, that's clearly a separate shape from this. That's much better. Let's see, go back and see, am I missing anything? No. Alright. This is the form, the little baby form is the one that I've drawn the least. Because, I mean, she's like a Route 1 rodent. They evolve fast. She's been a Lanoon for like 15 years. She was a Zigzagoon for probably a day. In real time. In the narrative of my Gajinkas, I don't know how long that would actually be. She was a Zigzagoon for, I don't know, a few weeks? I'm still figuring out how I want that to work, don't worry about it. But yeah, the idea that she looks like this is something that I kind of recently developed. This picture is from like 2 days ago. What's interesting with some of my designs is that I have to reverse engineer certain aspects of them. So for the Zigzagoon, it's like nothing here was planned, but the stuff for the oldest form, I kind of knew what I wanted her to look like just because that's what a Lanoon kind of looks like. But then I wanted to maintain certain things in the Zigzagoon form, even if they wouldn't be on a Zigzagoon. Her bangs, her little flip up at the top. Zigzagoon has little 3 points on the ears. Oh no, they have 3 points here too. Never mind. Her little flippity hair at the top has 2 points, and it would have been 3 in either of those. Well, either way. There's other stuff that I keep. Like, I'm keeping did I keep the blue eyes? Yeah, I kept her eyes blue, even though Zigzagoon does not have blue eyes. So it's like, the idea is, well, in real life, it's like, oh, I didn't plan these in the order you think. In the meta-commentary, I guess the idea would be, they grow into what they were always meant to be. So it's like, oh, well, she doesn't look typical of her species. It's like she looks typical of herself. Because Zigzagoons have, like, the little bandit mask, I gave her eyelids that extend down further, and I gave her some little eyelashes. It's not really the same as having a raccoon mask, but if you went too far with, like, mascara, that's kind of one of the things people would say, is that it looks like a raccoon. Or just a hot fucking mess. So that's what I went with. The logic, I'm still figuring out what I want to do narratively, and I shouldn't... Something's wrong here. Something's wrong with that face. I'm gonna remove that layer. Sometimes you can figure out what's wrong by removing your blueprint. Yeah, I don't like this. Let's start that over, bring that back. I don't want the bang to cover everything because then it just disorients the way I position her eyes. There we go. Anyways, I'm not sure what I'm doing narrative-wise for these characters if they had a story, and I really shouldn't decide on anything because I have a webcomic that I'm currently neglecting to do this. It's like, I don't need to give myself another problem. I don't need another project. I really don't. But, so far, something's wrong with her bangs. I don't think I need to redraw her bangs, but I think I need to shuffle them. Let's turn off that layer. I like that better. Deselect. There we go. The story idea is blatant wish fulfillment. The idea being I like the idea of self-indulgent, self-insert Mary Sue bullshit stories as a form of, like, self-meditation, if that makes any sense. If you're self-aware of what you're doing when you write something stupid, then it has meaning. So the current thing I'm going with is that I'm retelling my experiences with Pokemon as I am the master of this world of toys. Kind of, I like to think of it as being like Velveteen Rabbits. If you know the old story, the Velveteen Rabbit is just a plush toy that some kid has. And it's an old-timey story, so the kid gets, like, tuberculosis or something, and the toy is what he holds on to while he's having his horrible death fevers. The kid gets better, but they have to dispose of the toy because it's, you know, covered in tuberculosis. And this was before washing machines, so basically just anything, like the kid's bed sheets or whatever, would be... Ugh, her thumb looks terrible. Let's see... that looks okay. That's good enough. This doesn't look good. Anyways, the procedure for tuberculosis stuff I think it was tuberculosis. It was some disease that is not as prevalent and is less deadly in the modern day. But the idea is, you have to burn these bed sheets. You gotta burn everything the kid had been wearing or using. That included his pet rabbit. And unlike, like, a Pinocchio type story where you have to do something in order to earn it, you gotta, you know, be an honest little real boy, good boy, and learn whatever, and become a donkey first. It's just, you were loved, you're real to him. And so the Velveteen Rabbit, and Velveteen is like a fabric type, it becomes a real rabbit in the end, and that saves it from being burnt. I guess it's kind of a afterlife thing, sort of. You could say it's like, oh, when you're dead, you don't have to be a toy anymore. Or just what I want to do with it, like, just if your human master loves you enough, you might as well be a person. So I'm retelling the general experiences I've had with Pokemon over the years. I was, like, an original Gen 1 kid. I was, like, 9 when the series launched in America. And it's like, oh, there's a lot of things that I did with it. Like, it's, you know, magical imagination playground. It's just, like, I would retell it as me going through the games and making it mine. And all of the NPC humans are kind of not full people. It's like, oh, everything, it's a game, everyone's just kind of a robot that goes around and does their job. And then once I have caught something, it gets a human form. The NPCs don't notice. They just treat them like they're still dogs. But the idea is that, like, oh, well, they've become people, they have their own emotions, they can now set their own personal goals for their lives. And, you know, I'm not going to give her an effect for those. I'm not going to have it be like a little scratch like I did for Topanga's. Those were a last-minute edition, they look kind of cheesy. I'll just have it be, she's a baby, she doesn't have to look cool. Anyways, it's like, oh, they become full characters because I found them, and I caught them, and trained them, and then they get to grow up and have their own lives. Filtered through the idea of they're doing it as sort of a help and companionship for the only real human in the world. It's very stupid, I know it is. You know, I will start doing some coloring. Going to make the background this nice purple. I use a desaturated purple a lot because it's, like, just, easy for other things to show up on while being still a fairly neutral tone. And also I like purple. So I'm going to start by just doing a big scribble of every bit of skin showing. It's just easy to start with skin because it's at the bottom. I'm not showing any, like, exposed muscle or anything, so it's like this is the base. Nothing's below it. I mean, there's things behind it, but whatever. I think of it as being like start with the skin. Doesn't always work out that way because sometimes I will then adjust the skin when I'm designing a character. It's like, oh, maybe I want to put the skin on a separate layer, separate it out, and then like do a hue slide on it. I'll show you what that would look like right now because I can. It's like, oh, what if, no, not like that. Like, what if I wanted her to be darker? I might have wanted to have kept that as a separate layer. I don't. But yeah, I do skin first, usually. And I'm doing every bit on each form just because it's like, then I don't have to go eye drop another color. There are ways, if you're doing things right, to speed up the coloring process instead of having to literally like just color like it's a crayon, but I don't want to go through the trouble of like lassoing things or making sure all my lines connect perfectly. And it's not that hard for a character like this. It's not too complex. I don't have to worry about like a background or anything. There's a little bit of forehead peeking out there. I don't want to cover it up. So I'm going to get eyebrow. Sometimes the important thing is to have little bits of skin peeking through hair. It makes the hair feel more real as opposed to just being like a long hat. You want to actually have bits of it like separate apart so you can show that there can be things behind it, so that you can see things through it. Hair is one of the things I put a lot of effort into. Alright. Zoom out just too far. Yeah, there we go. Sometimes for certain Pokemon, I will design them a feral form first, like literally just this is what it looks like as a Pokemon. And then in order to make sure that they stand out from, oh, look at that. I didn't even notice. Her eyebrow stops. There we go. It should go further towards, you know, the end of the eye. Anyway, sometimes I will design them Pokemon first, so then it's like, oh, it can't look like literally every Pokemon out there. So then I'll do things like color tweaks, and then that will mean their Gajinka will be not the colors you'd expect. Tanuki is more or less the colors you'd expect for a Linoone, but then I did go back, and you can kind of see this here. It's like I made some decisions on what she would look like, and I just made the markings arranged different. So like her entire legs are brown, as opposed to her having like more stripes, as opposed to this where it's just got more of that. It's just like, nah, her whole body's a stripe. There's no particular symbology to it, it's just I thought it looked good. And it corresponds to her wearing pants. Those are her pants. So a lot of these color choices are going to look very much, this sure is a Linoone, looks like every other one. This, if you just wanted a singular human design to embody all the Linoones, this could be it. But with little charms that only this character would have, like her necklace has represents that she has some elemental attacks that she shouldn't have. Let's do little bits of hair thingies next. I went back to my line art brush for this so that it kind of matches the texture. Otherwise, I was using just that generic smooth round brush. That's just so I can fill everything in without it having any surprise transparencies that I don't notice till later. Because this brush, if you just wiggle it like that, there's little bits in between where it's like, it was not a perfect smear. Which sometimes I want. That's what I want when I'm doing things where it's got like a hard edge, when it's got like an unlined edge to it. It's like that's not something that should be smooth. It's like just line artless, but it should match the textures. How far down did I? It's like halfway down her hair. Since this is a lot of hair, I think I'm just gonna get the texture up here and then switch back to that brush. I'm locking the transparency real quick and zoom. Since I locked the transparency, everything I just filled in created the boundaries for me. Unlock. Let's get back to work. I did not draw her tummy. There we go. Now she's colored in down there. Let's get her eyes. Yeah, even though I didn't draw lines for like the lower lid, it's like obviously there's a lower lid to her eye. I don't like how this looks. Going back to that. A fun thing with Krita, that's the program I'm using, is I can hold down Shift and then make it bigger or smaller for the brush. Super easy. I, for a very long time, used a program called GIMP. I still use it for some things, but there's certain things that are easier in that and certain things that are much, much easier in Krita. And anything to do with like brush size and texture and transparency is almost always better in Krita. It does have its own problems though. Sometimes it does weird shit. GIMP would crash randomly though, so I'm used to weird shit. I don't even use the updated version of GIMP. I use a version that's like 10 years old now. It's just what I'm used to. There we go. Let's get her eye color. You'll notice for eyes, I kind of just do that weird scribble wiggle instead of like a proper iris with like a proper pupil. I don't do like the texture of an iris where it's got the little lines. The scribble like that is kind of a shorthand for, oh, there's light reflecting, there's texture to the iris, there's all that, but you're not seeing it, you're seeing it from far away, so it kind of looks like this. It's just a simplification that I think I think works, so that's why I keep it. Get the mouth. Get mouth number 2. Yeah, the tongue and the cheek, logically don't really have different flesh tones. They're just going to be the same inside mouth color, but this way you can kind of see that that is what that is supposed to be, is a tongue. As opposed to just a weird inner fleshy hole, because that would be gross. Got this going. This is where it fades out, so I'm going to do just kind of like that. And yeah, it's a smoother look than the line art, but it's like, you're not going to notice as much. It's more noticeable when you have like the color fade in her hair, if that was too smooth, as opposed to this other thing's like, oh, well, you cut off the drawing. It's unnatural anyways. This particular, like this cropped sweater, when I originally was putting together this design, I didn't think of it as being cropped. I just kind of assumed she was going to have a sweater that went all the way down. And then when I started drawing it, it was like, I think I want a stronger division between where her hips begin. As opposed to actual Lanoon, it's like, it's just one long noodle badger thing. It's like, it is just a line. I like the idea that she's a little more defined, as opposed to just being all the way down wearing practically a bodysuit or having like a really long floppy sweater or something. It's like, I like the idea that she looks more streamlined for having these little breaks in the color, I think. That could just be me. Could just be because I'm thinking, like, when I draw a character in baggy clothes, I have to think about how those things billow and fluff, and it's like, she's not supposed to be billowy. She's supposed to be, like, kind of slim. So then I gave her tighter clothes, but then didn't want it to be like she was wearing, like, a body sock. There's no real logic behind her having the necklace that has the different elements on it. It's just she likes pretty things, but I just wanted something to indicate this is a normal type that has, like, a water attack, and, like, that's, you know, it's not too showy. It's just showy enough. I reused a lot of these colors from one to the other. You know, the implication in real life would be like, oh, you just know the hex code for the exact color of clothes you want, and you only buy clothes in that color. No. It's kind of hard to match fabric colors sometimes, but, it makes it more clear that this is the same character, to use the same color tones. When I have characters who wear, like, they have, like, a broad wardrobe, I try to stick to a color palette. So that, like, if a character shows up in a clown suit one day, that clown suit will still be in colors that they look like they'd wear. So that you know that's not me being bad at drawing and that's a whole different character with the same face. Like, no, that's the same guy. I spend a lot of time thinking about how I'm going to avoid same face. And I'm sure you can see why I would be worried. I draw very generic anime faces. But then there's a lot of subtleties you can get, even with those. So I make a point of putting in that effort. Is this the same? Yeah, that's the same color. There's another time where I should use it. Wrong one. I should not neglect the textures of lines. There we go. But then there's already a line here, so I don't need to worry. Did I line the... No, I did not line the bottom. And the pants. There we go. You know what I haven't thought about in a little bit? I totally had... Drop that thought for a second. Time to make another incredibly tiny correction. Oh, that's not the right color. That was a little bit off. Like, that wasn't going to connect behind this hand. It would have been really, really disjointed. I fixed it. So anyways, what I haven't thought about since we did it was this little lightning bolt. Let's erase, well, not erase. Let's turn those off. Let's fill that in. I wind up doing this kind of thing a lot with my webcomic Laserwing because it's about wizards, and they tend to do a lot of wizard-ish magic effects that kind of would look like this. One of my characters is a technopath, and he shoots off little weird lightning bolts. So I've kind of got a technique to this. I mean, right now I'm just kind of filling that in. I have like a way and a rhythm. I have kind of a personal hand rhythm for the way I draw things, like lightning bolts or water or anything with like a texture to it. It's like, I think of textures and repeating patterns as being like a hand rhythm. Like, I'm not a musical person. I would not be able to keep track of a beat to save my life. But there is kind of a similar idea when you're drawing something that's going to be a little irregular, but still has to have a method for its irregularity. It's like the way I move my hand for a wave is different from the way I would move my hand for a lightning bolt. But there's still kind of a rhythm to both. So I'm under the impression that if you just saw a bunch of lightning bolts and I made them, you'd be able to tell I made them. Which goes back into the thing I've been saying. It's like, I want my art to look like it was made by me. And if it doesn't, then it means I cheated. Which sounds like it means I'm saying, like, I don't need to get better, that's my style. It's like, no. You want your improvements to look like your style improved. You don't want your improvements to look like you traced something or pulled it off of Google image search. And that's what I mean. So I am going to now colorize the line art for that. Of the effects, some of them are just done in black lines, as you can see here. What did I do for... Yeah, his are in black lines, too. It just... I don't know. Do it when I remember to. I think it looks better this way. Let's see. She's pretty much colored. She's pretty much colored. Let's do this word bubble. Seems kind of weird and arbitrary that I'm depicting Covet this way. On a different one of these, I did, my Swallow has Endeavor. How the fuck do you depict that? I just kind of drew him crying. It worked. I got, like, a good response to that picture. I forgot to do her hair tone here. Let's do that real quick. I made a point of having a distinct way in which her hair, her weird side bangs come down. Like, it's the color is higher, closer to the face, and goes out and down. Although the shape of it is longer, closer to the face, and goes down further, and then goes up, going up. So it's just kind of comes to a point here. It's just, if you're consistent with things like that, then it makes your character more recognizable. Because then it's like, oh, you actually made a point of doing this in a certain way every time. It must be intentional. That's kind of if you can tell what the artist's intent is with stuff like that, then it gives more personality to the character, because you're like, oh, well, it's meaningful that this does this. Even if it's something really minor, it's like, well, what if I had a different Lanoon character and their hair did the opposite thing? Like, if she had, like, an evil twin and their hair did it in reverse, that would be your tell. So I'd better do it consistent now, just in case I wanted to do something ridiculous like that later. The bits on the main part of the hair, though, there's no angle to that, it just happens. So, looks like she's good there, she's good there. Let's get Baby Tanu. Funny thing about some of these characters, these Pokemon that I've had since I was little, well, not little, I was in high school, these Pokemon that, I just picked their names from a online dictionary for Japanese words. Sometimes I stumbled into whatever they were actually supposed to be. Tailo in Japanese, I guess, is Tsubame. My Swallow is just literally named Tsubame. Like, it's the TS instead of just the S, but it's more or less the same. It's like, oh, that just means swallow, like the bird. That's fine. It's been his name forever, I'm not changing it. There we go. I think Zigzagoon in Japanese is still something more or less just Zigzagoon. But I didn't find out, yes, this thing's kind of a Tanuki until after I named her that. Like, it's an ambiguously raccoon badger, which is still kind of... Tanuki are actually canines, but Zigzagoons are ambiguous enough that you kind of see a little of that. Is that the... yeah, that's the color I want. The bangs here, side bangs, ear hair, whatever that's called, her Inuyasha hairs, they do the same thing in her Zigzagoon form as they do in her regular. But the bottom bit is kind of following the ridge of this little fluff that's intended to evoke just Zigzagoon's fur. Which wasn't actually why I gave the Lanoon form that. I did the Lanoon form first and I just gave her a color change hair just because. But when it came down to time to do the Zigzagoon design, it was like, yeah, that works. That's exactly how it would work, is it would kind of cut off where that is, because they're covered in zigzags. Worked out perfectly. It almost looks like I reverse engineered it, like she grew up from a Zigzagoon, even though I kind of designed them in reverse. There. Got her dress to do. Setting myself up for disaster using such complex hand shapes right in front of something where I'd have to color behind it. But whatever, I do that all the time. Her elbows don't look perfect. Like, that's one of the things I do consistently have a struggle with, which is part of why I do it. I'm good at hands, but I'm not good at positioning of arms and elbows. So, like, sometimes I'll foreshorten weird, but then it's like, yeah, I gotta keep trying, so I'm gonna keep doing it. But if I dwelled on it, this would be, like, twice as long of a video. I've kind of masked it by having her baggy sleeves kind of, like, hide where her actual elbow should be. Makes it easier to pretend I know how to foreshorten. And then I kind of imagine that this is like a brown version of some of the clothes you see people buy for their babies these days, where it's like, oh, it's got like almost like a tutu growing out of the top. And it's like, she looks like she was dressed by a mom in the 2020s, not that she magically was born from game data wearing this like some kind of weird symbolic Selkie skin. But I don't care that this doesn't look like what she would have picked for herself or what would have been picked in the mid-2000s, because it looks right for a Zigzagoon. Zoom out. Look at what we're doing. We got a lot of empty space here, but that's because I'm gonna use it. So now let's shade. Got a new layer, multiply. Yeah, I thought I was gonna break this up into two, but it's like I'm into the rhythm now. I'm gonna eyedrop. I've been using the same colors for shading as well as the same background and the same text color for all of these, as you can see. So then if I wanted to put them all next to each other, the shading color is the same, so they'll look like they're in the same room. Like the lighting is the same sources and the same colors. Of course, the light source positioning is going to be a little wacky, because for each one of these, I try to have it look like light is coming from their attack effects. And that's not even going to be the same across the different pictures on the same canvas. And honestly, she wouldn't really be a light source then, because she doesn't have enough attack effect up here. You know what? Okay. Let's give her... What color should it be? Let's start like this. Let's see how this looks. I might not go with it. Nah, that looks like shit. Can't do anything up here without it, like, interacting weirdly. Never mind. Gonna leave it. What was I saying? Something that was not that failure of an idea. Alright, now coming down here, she wouldn't really have an attack effect for some of these. There wouldn't be a lighting source. It's just going to be just wherever. It's going to be generic. But here we've got the lightning, so we're going to use that. Maybe I can just use the lightning as the light source for all of this. No one's going to quiz me on it. Why the others are inconsistent. Yeah, that's the only thing that would be inconsistent if I put these all on one canvas, would be that, oh, they look like they're in the same room, but there's a bunch of lighting sources going crazy. Don't think I'm gonna put these all on one canvas, though, so it doesn't matter. I just like that they look like they're a part of a set. Because they kind of are. It makes it look like I'm more professional than I am, like I was planning to do something. I'm not. I keep, like, getting into the idea that I will plan something, and then I don't. Because it would take time away from Laserwing and other projects. You know, like it's doing right now. That's fine, though. And if anyone... Oh, something's wrong here. Something's wrong here. She has a thick neck. And I don't think anyone thinks that thick necks are sexy. So let's get that. Fix that. So, neck placement for a character in this style is like, kinda, I'm not always consistent with that kind of thing. But I want them to not look like something happened. She needs to not look like something was a mistake. So that follows through, kind of matches the line of the sweater here. Yeah, that's acceptable. It was a barely perceptible difference, but it makes a difference to me. Anyways, if anyone wants to see me devote more time to my Pokemon as a project, the best way to slowly trick me into doing that is to give me feedback on it. Tell me that you like what I'm doing, that you want to see more, ask me questions about them, about the individual characters, or like, oh, I don't want to say roleplay with me because I don't want to do that, but like if people come up and it's like, oh, this reminds me of my character and here's my character, it's just like, well, that means I'm making you think about your creativity, and I find that very affirming for me if I'm inspiring other people in some way. So if you hate my webcomic and you want to see it never get another page, the funniest way to get me to abandon it would be to praise this video and stuff like it. That is part of why I, up until very recently, was running a Pokemon blog where I did a daily picture of a Pokemon, then ran on a Pokemon, did some Digimon, did some Monster Rancher, and eventually it became more work than it was worth, and I had to end it because it was getting me attention on the internet. Like, I would have done it anyways. I like drawing Pokemon, but, like, I didn't think when I started it that it was going to be a project. I thought it was going to be a shitpost. And then it became more than that because it, like, people enjoyed it and it inspired people's creativity or to talk about Pokemon or Beyblade or whatever, and gave people something to share with their friends, to be like, look at what, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was about, or whatever. And if me drawing my Pokemon, me doing an inherently self-indulgent and selfish act like drawing my own OCs and talking about them, inspires someone to do the same for themselves, that's great. I love that. Where we can all just sort of, like, talk about our imaginary friends, but in a productive way. Throat's getting a little dry. I don't have water with me right now because I was terrified of spilling it on this microphone. It's Josh's fancy mic. Josh is, people probably already know, but Josh is my lovely boyfriend husband, who does do all of the actual recording technical work when we do LPs and streams. And he bought this mic with, like, I forget, it was an expensive mic, it's a fancy one, and if I were to get water anywhere near it, I think we'd both have a heart attack, so I'm gonna sit here with a slightly dry throat. It's fine. We're getting pretty close to the end of this drawing. Yeah, I've kind of given up on directions for this light source, but that's okay, because even if you don't specifically have things look like you know where the light is coming from, by putting in shading and highlights to kind of define the forms, you're still making it pop more. Something that a lot of people say, like, even in tutorials for, like, pet site type art, like Neopets-ish, AWAS, Subeda type things, like, some people will just actively admit when they do their shading and then explain it that's like, there's not really a light source here, it just kind of is. It's like, you just need to be able to tell what shapes are. You don't need to know exactly where in the room they are in relation to the imaginary windows. It's fine. I'm gonna zoom out. Something's not clicking, though. I think it's that I made that too. Yeah, that's better. So the ridge of the nose would go all the way up, but with the bangs and with everything else, like, the light isn't going to extend from this lightning bolt all the way up and then reach the very end to where her bangs start, so I just kind of shaded in a little more. I also tend to not shade the whites of the eyes. I don't do that unless I'm trying to be more realistic with where the light source is, because it's a little symbolic. Eyes are the life of a character drawing, especially in this bullshit anime style I do. The idea is that, like, the eyes are basically light sources to themselves, even though, no, they're not. Because if I shaded over that, it would make them look plastic. They look like dolls. I mean, more so than they already do for being human versions of Pokemon drawn in an anime style like this. I need to have some sort of weird symbolic artist metaphor for life, and that's mine. Alright. Gonna get... Let's see, I'm still using that lightning bolt as my light source, which I didn't think I was gonna do, and then change my mind. It's fine. There we go. it's very easy to overthink the shading and the line work when you're doing hands. But if you put too much detail into hands, like you're trying to make sure everything's perfect, you end up with really wrinkly hands. Sometimes your best bet is not to be super good at them, because I know hands are hard. I think feet are harder, but hands are more likely to have to be drawn. You can't hide them. But it's less important to be good at doing a perfectly accurate hand, and more important on being able to convey consistently what you want the hands to convey. And like maybe 75% of that is being good at gestures, but gestures aren't necessarily required to be super accurate to the way a hand would actually look, because if they're a little bit off, but they convey the motion, almost like an animation smear, then you're doing good. Again, it kind of sounds like I'm just saying it's my style, I don't have to do it better, but, like, not really. You do want to improve, you do occasionally want to just sit down and draw a hand exactly how it looks, and that'll help you for later hand drawing, but, you also don't want creepy photorealistic hands on your anime girl, so that's my advice for hands. So I'm getting some highlights. Zoom in. You can't really see the highlights on her skin because she's already kind of pale, but I'm putting them in anyways, because even if you can't see them immediately, there's a subconscious sort of understanding your eye has of where shadows are, and this helps with it. It's easy to fuck up with highlights though, because at least the way I do it with an overlay layer, like, it does screw up colors if you're not careful. Luckily, I picked the color I was going to use for my overlays a while ago. Like, when I started doing all these other pictures, I'm just using the same colors. So even when something looks like maybe I've washed it out too much, I can set it next to the other pictures, and it's like, well, once you see enough of them, your eyes adjust to the fact that that's what the light looks like in this space. So then I go back to this and it's like, yeah, this doesn't look washed out. This looks like she's in this weird purple void. And that's just how it looks. Yeah. I don't put a lot of texture into my shading when I'm doing these particular pictures because, again, that's over-detailing, but you do want to kind of think about how different fabric textures will receive light. This sweater would be knit, this would have been yarn, so it's going to be soft, it's not going to be super slick, so I'm using, it's not as important, I think, for shadows, but for highlights, you don't want to make things look shiny when they're not. I'm doing kind of like a wide, soft blob of light. As opposed to on the hair, I was using like these little smaller, narrower stripes of highlight, just because, hair has strands. It's going to reflect off of those. It's kind of a weird light source question here, where behind her shoulder, you're not going to get light from the lightning bolts, but it's far enough away from the rest of her that I still want to have like a little reflected light on the edge of that, so it's like the light's in the middle and there's shade on either side. It's just because, like, even if this purple void does have very distinct lighting effects and directions, like, you're still going to have reflected light that bounces off of whatever and comes back, so that's why not everything is super cut in stone. And that kind of helps with, helping the eyeball to not think about it too much. I think I need to tone this down. I think, having this much of a light shine right next to, the division where the hair changes color is like, maybe not necessary, it's too busy. That looks okay. I didn't color outside the lines in any obvious ugly places. I didn't do this. Let's see. Still gotta get this. I think this this dress that she's wearing as a zigzagoon would not be, like, knit like the sweater. It'd be, like, a finer fabric, so maybe it is a little shinier. Like, maybe it's made of tulle or something. A little gauzy, so it's got a little more, it's a little less blobby and a little more shiny, but not as much as the hair. And since it's supposed to evoke the general shape and texture of zigzagoon fur, like that works out and makes her look more fluffy. Let's see, there we go. Just realized my Control-Z is right next to the microphone. Sorry guys, I'll see how awful that sounds when I edit this. Might not be something I can help, unless we got like a boom to put the mic on so that I don't have to have it on the desk. Like, I don't think I'll be able to avoid that. We were thinking very briefly we would get like a stand for this thing, but in our living room it's not very practical. Let's see, I want a little more shine here, I think. I'm gonna erase that shine. Sometimes Krita doesn't listen when I press E for erase. Zoom out. Let's look at this. This is looking pretty good. Since I did it on screen, I feel like maybe I rushed myself a little in comparison to some of my others, but I usually feel like my work is not perfect when I'm done with it. Like, if you've not looked at your work long enough, you will start to see little imperfections. If you've not looked at your work for about a day, your brain no longer thinks of it as being something you just did, and then you start to see it a little bit more smoothly, and then you give it a few more weeks, and then you start seeing the imperfections. So, I'll not be too hard on this. This looks good. So let's get, not that page. Let's eyedrop this text color, change over to my inking pen settings, make that a little bigger. Tanuki. My handwriting is atrocious, I am aware. Let's see. What's she got again? Covet. Ice Beam. There's a chance I'll go back and check and she does not have Ice Beam. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure she does. Surf. And Thunderbolt. And I write their species on there, because, like, it's obvious to me that that's a Zigzagoon, but not everyone's, like, the Pokemon expert. I don't like the way her shading looks there. Hold on a sec. I need to fuzz that out a little. There we go. That's better. Go back to our inking pen. Yeah. Zigzagoon. Lanoon. Lanoon. Because as I've said, age and evolution are not the same thing. She evolved early because Route 1 rats evolve early, but that doesn't mean she was an instant adult. I like to, when I put in the descriptions, slip their nature. Oh, this was a different color. Whatever, it matches him. I can change it later. I like to put the nature in their description of their personality. So let's see. Modest, actual nature. And let's see, mischievous. I'd say quirky. She's very quirky, but that's an actual nature, so that would kind of confuse things. You know what? Let's back up. Let's put modest at the end. Let's see. I did a really good description on here, but it's too long. Likes to hum songs when she searches the ground for shiny stuff. Likes to have nice things but doesn't show off her collection because she thinks nobody cares. That's the modesty, is that she does all this shit but she thinks that no one wants to hear it. Makes impulsive decisions, then doesn't tell anyone what happened. But I want to go something shorter because I don't have as much space. Let's see. Impulsive. Impulsive. Energetic. But modest and not quiet. I have already established she likes to kind of sing to herself. Modest. I want an and in there, but I don't know what to do. Let's see. Modest and caring. Let's just say caring. She's your tomboy waifu, whatever. Likes to collect any and all shiny things. I think that's good. That's good. Let's actually move this up a little bit. Fill the space a little better. Zoom out. Deselect. And let's crop this. I like to give myself a lot of extra space so that I can fit the writing, but then once I got the writing, like, that's enough. There. So that's done. So that's basically just her personal profile pic. You know what? Actually, let's bring that down. There's plenty of space. I gave myself way too much space this time. Sometimes I give myself no fucking space. Like, look at how small that is. Everything's crushed together. This one's squeezed in weird. This one I gave myself so much space. Huh. It's random. It's just however I end up drawing. Come on. Yeah, there we go. So, the very important thing I forgot to do this entire time that I'm usually better at is saving. Let's do that. Full Tanuki. I've been calling them full and then their name. Just like, this is their full art. This is their... If I made a website and had to do, like, a cast page of things, like, this would be the picture on her page. It's her full bio, whatever. So then I saved it as a KRA. That's the Krita file type. Save as... Wait. Flatten. And then scale it down to one of the sides to about 1,000. That's usually good enough. Then save as PNG. So that's my fucking badger. Her name implies she has big nuts, but she doesn't. She likes to pick up Ultra Balls, though. She's one of my babies, and now she's been drawn. Like, comment, and don't subscribe. I don't know if I'm going to do any more of these. Harshly critique me. Tell me I did terribly and how to fix it for the next time. Suggest stuff. Ask me what other Pokemon I have. Tell me about your Pokemon. And have a good night. Thanks for participating in this experiment. Bye-bye.